Gwenpool's better than Deadpool. I triggered like a million people with that statement. I really did. But it's not wrong. It's really not, because Deadpool is one of my favorite superheroes. He legit is, and Gwenpool's not even close to that. So you're probably wondering, how is Gwenpool better than Deadpool? Comicstorian, did you just say that to get a clickbait title? Yes, but there's a reason behind it. You see, Deadpool's known for his fourth wall breaking humor. You're about to see someone who can break the fourth wall harder than Deadpool. Let's get to the story. Gwenpool is a superhero that fell into the Marvel Universe from the real world. Armed with the comic book knowledge of her favorite superheroes, she's trying to find a place to exist in this universe. This led her to joining MODOK's group, taking it over, fighting a Doombot turned good, meeting Miles Morales, and eventually fighting against Deadpool, where he proved that he is the king of breaking the fourth wall. But like I said in the intro, has Deadpool ever gained complete control of his reality? Gwen eventually finally realized that there are doppelgangers of the people that she knew in her world, and she considered the idea that maybe she could find her family. But when she finally got to what would be her home in the real world, she nervously approached the door. What is she going to find there? A version of herself? A family that doesn't know her? Is it just dumb? So she decided that it wasn't worth walking up to that door and learned what fate had befallen her family in this universe. When the door opened, out stepped her brother. Gwen, you finally showed up. Teddy, your voice, you're you, like the real you, not the comic book version of you. He turned to the door and grabbed her hand. It's time to go home, Gwen. They walked into the house where there was a swirling portal in the center of the floor, and he jumped in holding her hand. As he did, he told her, I'm taking you back home. Back to before you came here. The world twisted and warped around her as she tried to tell him that she didn't want this. She wanted to be in the comic book world. She likes it here. And that was it. She found herself sitting in her room playing video games. Her mother walked in telling her that she shouldn't waste her time. She should go get a job. She tries to convince her mom that looking for a job is pointless. Minimum wage is garbage, and most jobs want experience from outside New York, leaving only New Jersey as an option, and she's not moving to New Jersey. But her mother told her, you don't pay rent, you don't have bills, get your privileged hiney out in the streets, and get to looking for something that's gonna pay you that minimum wage. Oblivious to the adventure that she just had, Gwen begins to wander the streets texting her old friends. But they all graduated and moved away. She was left alone here. She walks into the comic book shop where she gets her latest pull, and she looks down excited about the Secret Wars book. She jokingly tells the owner that, wouldn't it be nice to live in one of those multiverses that are fighting in the Secret Wars? What if we are a comic book universe? And the owner chuckles, no, Gwen. Why would I want to live in a world that could be destroyed at any moment and only a few select people get to live in Battle World? She asks if he's hiring, and he says no. So she walks out happy that she searched for a job. She runs into her brother and they go talking about their lives, their real lives. Not some crazy comic book nonsense, but real life stuff. On her computer that night, select websites appear blocked and she finds it weird, but of course there are no answers. And the next morning, her father slams the newspaper down, telling her to find a job. She tells him that she will, and her mother walks in suggesting that if she enjoys writing, maybe she could get her GED and then go to school for an English degree. But Gwen tells her that she doesn't need a degree. She's working on her fanfic. Some of the best-selling authors started in fanfic. Her father asks her how's that going, and she tells him that she's just waiting for some inspiration, and he snaps at her again. I knew it. You can't even commit to something you care about. She angrily stands up. It's not the writing that I care about, it's fantasizing about a better world than this one. All right, fine. Tell me what's so bad about your cushy life, Gwen. Tears begin to fall down her face as she tells him. I couldn't graduate high school, all of my friends moved away, and I can't even get a job at a restaurant. And he doesn't help. Again. Honey, if you stick to something that isn't a video game or a comic book, okay, fine, I'll go to my job. Good night. Teddy, her brother, is confused. Gwen got a job? But her father continues to aggravate the situation. It's her BS sleep study thing. They don't normally have her come in at night, though. Teddy knows what this means. This is the night that she becomes Gwenpool the superhero. He needs to stop it. This is his chance. He runs to the building and he sees her staring at a giant pink orb glowing with light. She looks into it and she sees Captain America's shield, Spider-Man's webs, and Thor's hammer. And she tells Teddy, I knew there were worlds better than this one. Teddy's confused. This isn't even how it originally happened. This isn't fair. The world isn't fair, Teddy. But look, there's a better one right there. It's so real I can almost touch it. She reaches out, but Teddy grabs her other hand and he gets knocked to the ground. He knocks over a can, which then gets shocked by the giant pink orb, and now it's smoking. She realizes that this orb could probably kill her instead of bring her to another world. And she turns off the machine and agrees with Teddy as they hug. That was a dumb idea, Teddy. I could have died. Tomorrow, I'm applying for a fast food job, and I'm gonna write the first chapter of my fanfic. And if it sucks, so be it. I bet it won't. Thanks, Teddy. And that's it. The end of Gwenpool. Or is it? Because Gwen turns around and sees some words on the ground. Words that you would assume only we can see. The end. And as she questions it, the words shatter. And there stands, to be continued. Gwen moves on with her life, getting a job at a movie theater, but things are weird. She's seeing titles and credit scrolls, such as the current one. Gwenpool, Beyond the Fourth Wall Part 2. Her day moves on as she sits on the train drawing characters in her notebook, but the characters of MODOK and Batroc the Leaper look a bit weird, like something's missing from MODOK. So she adds a mohawk, like the one he had in her story. And now, that seems normal. She begins to wonder if she saw this in a comic. Is she in one now? She questions how she got on this train because she was just at work. Did she lose a chunk of her life between the pages? Between the scenes of a comic? Is she just living panel to panel? She glances up. Am I seeing my thoughts as little pink boxes? Am I talking to my own captions? If there are captions, maybe. She closes her eyes and she pictures nothing but white around her. Then she looks straight ahead. She knows how the comics are drawn. She knows where the edge of the panel is. And that's when she touches it. She snaps back to reality and sees that she's just touching a woman's face, but she knows that that was real. The angle of the scene must have changed. It must have gone from straight to the side of her. She goes home where her father is supporting her ideas now that she's working and improving her life, but she walks upstairs and decides to try again. Above her, she sees the caption, but it's too high, she can't touch it. She begins to think that if that's her thoughts, then she could fill it with words, and she lets her mind wander. Over and over, she just starts thinking about random things, thoughts about everything, and eventually, the bubble gets larger and larger. The caption fills the room, pushing her into the wall, which begins to crack, and she throws herself out of a window and onto the grass in the front lawn. Her mother runs to her side, and they bring her to the hospital where they're trying to figure out why their daughter jumped out the window. And when she comes to, she sees her brother sitting next to her, and she explains to him that she thinks she's a comic book. This whole thing is her story. She then asks her brother, "What did you mean by this isn't how it originally happened? This isn't fair." He dodges the question and ignores her inquiries. He then hands her her notebook and a pencil, telling her that she probably would want this back. But when she opens it, she finds the pages of her comic book characters ripped out. She thinks to herself, he knows something. I'm not crazy. And then she reaches up to touch the caption box and feels it's still there. Yep, this is still happening. She takes out her pencil and she experiments again, reaching outside of the panel, and she begins to erase the lines between the panels. Because of that, she can see herself in the other panels, and she begins to talk to herself in shock. The various paneled versions of herself begin to laugh, and they begin to wonder if they're crazy. And she begins to look into oblivion, and then she wonders, what if she crawls through the hole in the comic that she made? Where will she end up? Which brings her beyond the comic to the entire spread of every page. She's now towering over her own story, walking into the oblivion space between everything. Which brings us to the start of the story, almost. Where did Teddy come from, and why did he have the knowledge that he did? Well, when Gwen fell into the Marvel Universe, so did Teddy. Though she had no idea that he was there, she thought that he had died in the initial entry. While Gwen was armed with the knowledge of comic books and how to become a superhero, Teddy, on the other hand, was terrified, and he had no clue what was going on. When he went home, he found his father, but it wasn't his dad, just a guy who had no idea who he was. So he wandered the streets, terrified of this world of giants and supervillains and things exploding all the time. And then he saw her, Gwen, dressed as Gwenpool. He thought that she would help him, that they could work together to get home, but instead, he saw her slaughtering dozens of people with a machine gun, and he realized that the Gwen in this world with him was psychotic. And then behind him stands an older Miles, Vic the Doombot, and Sarah, Sorcerer Supreme. Teddy recognizes Spider-Man, and then he asks Vinny, when did Marvel get the Terminator? Miles explains that they need Teddy's help, because in the future, Gwen is going to get a lot worse. Gwen explained to Miles that she was from a world where all of the people in the universe are comics, and she used her knowledge of Miles to destroy his life. Vic continues, that's not all. She used her powers to walk through time and space, crumpling it like paper. So Miles, Vic, and Sarah all found out that Teddy ended up in this world also, and they decided they needed his help to fix all of these problems to send Gwen back home. But how did Gwen find out this information? Well, she's been reading the panels. She's still between the panels, and she's looking down on them. It's here that she got her entire memory back while putting on her costume. She read up on her own history. And she got this costume by reaching into the panels and taking the extra ones. As her parents are calling the police looking for her, she jumped back into the panel to inform Teddy that she is pretty mad at him. Teddy turns asking where she even went, and she explained that she went between the comic panels. She remembered everything. And Teddy looks at her. You're in costume. Oh good, you remember too. Then you didn't forget that you tried to rewrite time about 2 or 3 issues ago? Teddy begins to explain that he thought she died when they fell into the wormhole, and she tells him, I know, I just saw it in the comic. You know, in this world, I didn't have a fun time like you, Gwen. Should've put on a costume. How is that a normal reaction to assuming you killed your brother, Gwen? I did a lot better than you until you teamed up with the Future Squad or whatever they are and tried to rewrite my history. For what they told me about your future and what you've become, I had to help them, Gwen. Gwen's parents hear them arguing and run into the room telling her that they can help, and Gwen has had enough. She reaches over and she tears the page in half, revealing the Oblivion right there. Teddy, we never left the comic. You didn't fix anything. Teddy begins to panic, but Gwen explains that all of this is an illusion. This isn't the real world, but more of a comic. Now come on, we gotta get through this whole thing before the page turns, because I'm not above admitting that I'm new to tearing holes in reality, and I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing right now. The Future Squad appears before her, demanding to know how she tore a hole out of the pocket universe that was created. Vinny the Doombot tells her that they aren't done. They need to prevent her future, and she pleads with them. I'm not a baddie! I don't want to become one! Can we just figure out what won't turn me into a bad guy? And then she turns to Sarah. Please, you're the only friend that I can trust. How can we fix this? And Sarah tells her that while they might be able to make an attempt at fixing the future, the fact that they are still here shows that she hasn't been stopped. And she asks, what do I become exactly? Spidey, you haven't talked yet. Nice future muscles, by the way. He lunges at her, grabbing her by the throat. You become a worse version of yourself than right now. Selfish, reckless, utterly uncaring of anyone you meet here because you're the only real person in the world. Except you don't just shoot anyone anymore. Then he stops her. Miles, you can't tell her. We don't know if she can. Miles turns around and the three of them begin to try and figure out another plan that involves altering her memories again. And while they do this, she begins to sneak off. Once they realize she's leaving, lightning bolts and webbing fly at her as she welcomes herself back to the superhero world. Hope she gets to survive. Miles looks at Vinny. What's up with our aim? And Vinny explains, she believes herself to be the star of the story, and any who oppose her are reduced to clumsy mooks. She runs for it, looking for the border of the panel until she finds it, parkouring over the side of it and into the oblivion of the comic book world again. She ends up tumbling and falling until she finds an establishing shot and she falls into the jungle. Problem is, Sarah is currently the Sorcerer Supreme and can find her easily, so the Future Squad is right behind her. They hit her with a freeze spell and they begin to try and figure this all out again. Sarah suggests messing with her memories, but Vinny explains that that's what gave her these powers to begin with. Except, while Sarah and Vinny are humanely trying to handle the Gwen situation, Miles has had enough and he webs up the two of them before grabbing Gwen and swinging off. She's all excited. Spider-Man is saving me! Thanks, because that whole memory wiping thing was kind of scary. I knew I could count on you to be the true hero, Miles. But then as she's thanking him, he throws her into the tree and he webs her up. I'm gonna kill you. Oh, I totally misread the situation. I need you to understand why, though. Yeah, that's totally fair, Miles. He pulls off his mask. You're just quipping away, and you don't even understand how big of a deal this is for me. I don't kill. Ah, dude, you look like someone who's just ended their presidency. You look old. Stop joking! Do you know how many lives you destroyed? For years you stay like this, a pain in the butt, sometimes helpful, usually not. Honestly, I didn't think much of you, but one day something is going to happen and you really stopped liking us all. I was the first you came for. You revealed my identity to the entire world, and it didn't even take a day before my family was killed. My mom, my dad, my wife, and my child. But that's not all, though. You spilled everyone's secrets, revealing terrible things that caused the greatest superhero war of all time. And it was all because it was fun for you. Once we figured out that you were just manipulating everyone, we tried to stop you, but you can just leave reality whenever you want. You became impossible to fight. You know everything, and you may as well be omnipotent. Gwen pauses for a moment, though, asking Miles, Miles, if she's so powerful, why hasn't she come back to fight you yet? Your brother. You didn't know that he ended up here, and it created a blind spot in your comic book knowledge so we could come back here and stop you. He isn't a character in your world, so you can't link back to the sequence of events. But Miles, I can see your flashback. She's in the comic now. And standing over him is a giant version of future Gwen. She flicks Miles, launching him into the sky. That's right, babies. Hello, beautiful. Gwen calls out, you killed Spider-Man! And future Gwen laughs. You think I killed him? Picture me on a cliff and I'll explain. Future Gwen then picks up her past self and puts her onto the cliffside next to a much smaller version of herself. Much better. And then they look at each other. While his flashback was interesting, I'm not actually giant-sized. Speaking of Spider-Man, have a look. Just as Spider-Man is about to die, he webs his way back up, launching himself towards safety. See? Spidey survives. I could tell by the way I smacked him that it was just the end of the issue. The younger Gwen asks herself, so it was a cliffhanger? Yeah, quite literally. We were on the edge of a cliff and it was the end of the issue. The future Gwen then holds her head. I'm being retconned as we speak. This is confusing. Wait, they retconned my origin? There was no sleep study. I have to make sure you become me. Make sure I become you. From what Spider-Man just told me, I don't want to. Evil future Gwen looks at her. What? Sarah then runs in, hitting future Gwen, and Vinny pops up with Spider-Man climbing up the cliff. Future Gwen realizes exactly what's happening. They're changing my past, and they're weakening me. So they throw Gwen over the side of the cliff with no other option but to kill her, but then future Gwen appears at the bottom to catch her. Vinny and Spider-Man come down to attack, and future Gwen welcomes her younger self to join in any time to save the both of them. But Gwen herself is still confused. She doesn't want to be evil. While she's battling against the three heroes, future Gwen asks her younger self, have you even considered for a moment that you were lied to? Maybe this Spider-Man is evil. But as she's convincing herself that maybe it's a lie, she's gaining more and more skills, becoming the evil version of herself once again. And that's when Sarah realizes they need to allow the younger Gwen to live, to help her. Otherwise, she's going to side with the future version of herself and become the omnipotent evil. As the battle continues, evil Gwen begins to vanish out of existence, and Spider-Man sees it happening. He turns to the younger version and he tells her, you see this now? You don't want to become evil. So evil Gwen has finally had enough, and she lightning bolts everyone and then shoots Spider-Man in the chest with a gun. See, this is why it's cool to be me. Why would you do that? I know this looks bad, little Gwen. Bad? Bad? And future Gwen grabs her and brings her between the panels again. Let's get out of space and time for a second so we can get a little perspective on the situation. Gwen looks at her future self and tells her, I don't want to be you. I'm gonna do to you what you did to Batroc the Leaper. Do you remember your home life? What you hated so much that you had to get away? Well, yeah. I dropped out of high school. I didn't have a job. I lost all of my friends and my parents were on my case all the time. Nope! Your readers only just saw that in issue 16 of this series. Do you actually remember anything before this? And future Gwen holds up a page of the first appearance of Gwenpool. You see, Gwen, you're a part of this world now, and as far as the comics are concerned, you never existed before that appearance. You read all of the comics, so you know everyone's secret identity, and does that sound like a superhero power to you? Think about it. You were forced to be a henchman for a MODOK. The world doesn't want you to be a hero. Then in front of them, the pages begin to swirl around in a vortex, and the words, Gwenpool can't kill Spider-Man, appears. You see, you can't break the laws of comics. None of this matters, so you may as well have fun. Blackmail Daredevil, steal the Milano and crash it into Ego, cut a deal with Mephisto, or start summer events. You think Cap joining Hydra was nuts? Wait until you make Eternity do it. It's so much fun! Gwen looks at her evil self. But why? Just because I can? I stopped trying to be good when I made a decision that I thought was right, and then the universe or the writers or whatever decided that I was wrong. I saved a friend and it was used against me, and it was a 10-issue crossover with 9 tie-ins. You tried to stop the school bomber. Then Spider-Man beat you up. And when you thought Cecil was going to be your ghost hacker sidekick, they killed him. And then you saved Bay Ridge and your team left you. You keep going against what the universe wants for you, and it's going to dispose of you. Nobody ever gets killed, Gwen. Spider-Man always comes back. Gwen, with pain in her eyes, looks at her evil version. Yeah, but you hurt Spider-Man. Yeah, I did! And I love Spider-Man. I love all of them. She grabs her future self and she tells her, I will make sure I never become you. Ever! And with that, future evil Gwen was wiped out of existence. Gwen is left standing on the endless landscape of the comic pages, and she jumps between the panels back to the jungle, but everyone is missing, even her brother. Crying, she goes to see her friend Sarah, who's now just normal Sarah. And they talk and they discuss about what happened. Sarah helps summon Miles and he swings in to see her, and Gwen informs him that she's done being a mercenary. She's seen where it leads and it's not good. If Peter Parker can figure out how to pay for Aunt May's medicine, then I could figure out how to get pizza. Miles hears Peter's name and he tells her, Quiet! Quiet! Don't say that too loud! So Gwen finishes. You never have to worry about me. Enjoy your family someday. She then sits there, watching as one of her favorite superheroes swings off on another adventure, and she prepares for her next one. And there you have it, folks. I know, legitly, she's not better than Deadpool. There, I said it. But her fourth wall breaking abilities is a lot better than Deadpool's. Overall, though, I like the character of Deadpool more than Gwenpool, but Gwenpool is a very fun read. I am really enjoying it because they poke fun at so much stuff. Don't forget to check the video out right here to see more Gwenpool content. Over here will be something Deadpool because he's better. We all know he's better. He's Deadpool. And you can also subscribe to get more Gwenpool and Deadpool content. Don't forget to check out our Facebook, facebook.com/eligiblemonster, where videos are getting re-uploaded and you'll find additional content such as Comicstorian Animated and various more portions of our podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Let me know in the comments down below if you like Gwenpool or Deadpool better and why. And I'll see you next time right here.